Welcome,
Welcome.
Housewives of True Crime.
You're really into that country.
I know.
I know.
Although I'm going to California soon, so I should get my Valley accent back. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what I'm
Like
saying?
a little vocal fry. That is such a turn off when I hear people talk like that.
Drop the y'all and
Yeah.
go back to, you guys.
Do people ever comment on that you say dude a lot?
No,
they don't. Mm-hmm.
They probably think it in their heads, and then they're like too nice over here to be like, that's weird.
Yeah. Is it? Because I do it too.
I know.
Yeah.
It's not if you live in Southern California in a beach city your whole entire life. But
yeah, true. Big week around here.
Really?
Yeah. It is birthday week for the Fred.
Oh, right.
AKA Jeremiah, AKA the man I'm married to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Birthday galore. He did do something for your birthday this year.
Yeah, he's been really good. And so you would think I would be rejoicing over that because he's pretty much sucked for like 20 years prior. But he's been doing really good lately. And I am the one that totally dropped the ball. It was his birthday on Monday and he had to leave town. I didn't have a present for him.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I thought I was getting a pass because I was like, well,
he's leaving.
Yeah, right. He's leaving. Yeah. I'm like, we'll celebrate as soon, when you get back. And I thought he would get back in a couple days and I'd bake a cake and have his gift. I'm trying to get him tickets to something and the tickets have not gone on sale yet. And so it's like, I have nothing else for him. It was like just Father's Day, like 5 minutes ago. I gave him like good stuff for that.
You know what? You got to it's like a combo. You should just be like, it's a combo. Sorry. Like my anniversary is always by Father's Day. So I'm like, it's a combo deal.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, so he's not on social media. So I talked to him and he's like, yeah, just having dinner at the hotel by myself. I'm like, did anybody call you? He's like, not really.
No. Oh, man.
That's what birthdays were like before we all got reminded of everyone's birthday.
That's so true.
So
true.
So he's just sad. And then to top that, fucker came home early. So he's like, calls me and is like, yeah, I'm at the airport. I'll be home in 2 hours.
Oh,
so the house is a mess. I'm like I did not bake a cake. I'm like, well, sorry.
That's
and then
fine.
Tonight, we can't do it either because I made plans actually to meet up with one of our friends from CrimeCon.
Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Okay. Joe the plumber and Kathy.
Is he really a plumber? I'm going to ask him.
Joe
is one of the funniest people I've ever met. Would you not agree?
I would agree.
And I feel like he likes to jerk people's chains a lot.
He is okay, so you guys, let's just go over Joe and Kathy really quick. We met them last year in Orlando, and Joe comes with a new shirt every 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Very buttoned up, really nice, handsome guy. And then his shirts are one day they had Mickey Mouse on them, and another day they have martini glasses. And so he's a real fun
He's a real character. We fell in love with him because he would
bring us
coffee. Would pretend that he would bring us coffee and he would pretend like he was fanning out at us every time people walked up to our booth. Oh, yeah, he would be like, oh my gosh, you guys know them? They are so famous.
And then he doesn't go to any of the talks. He's just there to support his wife, who's very into it.
How cool is that?
I know. And so they have kids, and she's like a Disney expert over there in the Orlando. And so she's coming to see Gretchen and go to take her kids to Disneyland.
Yeah.
Now. So I'm so excited. You're going to meet up with them and hang out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Too bad it wasn't a week later.
I know, for real.
I would be there. Well, whatever. Do it by yourself. Fine.
Yeah, I like them so much. I'm going to brave Anaheim again. I was just there
You
to
did
visit
it for
you.
me.
Yeah. Downtown Disney. Yeah. Traffic and heat, hot as balls.
Hot as balls, dude.
Mm-hmm.
But not as hot as Texas. Well, maybe it is actually as hot as Texas, like 96 here, but the humidity is a little bit stronger. Hopefully, everybody survived that damn hurricane. I mean, that was kind of scary. Not here in Dallas, but in Houston and surrounding areas. Did you hear about it? I'm sure you did.
Yeah. And I can't help but wonder, is the world changing, or is it just that now that I'm old, I pay attention to the news?
Yes, it's
Because
because you're old.
there's a lot of weather situations.
I mean, they do say that there is some climate changing. You've heard about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have, but I'm like, it's pretty intense, man.
But I do think that these things have happened. My parents were actually caught in a hurricane back in, I think, like the early 90s, and they were in Cancun, and so it's been happening for a while.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
not
real
it's
thing.
nothing
But I
new.
just like,
Yeah.
you're old when you start knowing about things like, there's a ice freeze in North Dakota and shit. Like I let that like infiltrate my brain. And I
Oh
worry
my
about those
gosh.
people. That sounds terrible.
Yeah. It
All
does
right.
sound
Well, I have
terrible.
something else terrible to talk about
Oh,
today. You
I
want to hear it?
knew. Yes, she told me earlier that she was that it was terrible, and I was like, "Oh, great," because next week's is pretty terrible too. Sorry.
Sorry in advance. Terrible in a good way.
Or
Ish.
not.
Or not.
Yeah.
You know what we mean.
Yes.
Okay.
A learning lesson, if you will.
Uh-huh. Yeah. A true crime, if you may.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's do it. Today's episode all goes down in Viva Las Vegas,
Mm.
home of the world famous Palomino Club. I have been to a couple strip clubs in Vegas. A little
Oh, that's a strip
Cheetahs.
club.
It is. A
You
little
know which
Olympic
one?
Gardens.
Oh, Olympic
With
Gardens is the one with the guys on top and the girls on the bottom, right?
uh-huh. Uh-huh. It's huge.
It's very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the
Only because
type.
there's like the guys. I like that.
You're so funny. Yeah. Um, I've never been to the Palomino.
Me neither.
I'd never even heard of it, actually. The Palomino, I have recently learned, is actually fascinating. It is the oldest strip club in Vegas. It opened in the year 1969, which I think is arguably the
Appropriately.
best year ever to have opened a stripping establishment, right?
Probably, yes.
Yeah. The club was really the first of its kind in Las Vegas because it offered and still does both full nudity and alcohol. So the combination attracted visitors from all over for the club owner, Paul Perry. So I guess you could say nudie booty plus booze was the pro. Location, location, location was the con, even back in the early days. The club is located off the strip in the designated Old Town area of Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And so Paul Perry, to combat this, began giving the cab drivers a kickback to bring people out to the club.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds like a smart business decision to
I
me.
think they still do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about it. Over the next 3 decades, the Palomino grew in popularity and became uber successful, making Paul around $4 million a year, which is a lot now. And in the 90s was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is no chump change.
Uh-huh. The Palomino became a celebrity pit stop, and Playboy magazine even did a spread dedicated to the women of the Palomino. Paul was living the dream when it all came crumbling down because his son Jack was temperamental and done killed a club employee at 3:40 a.m. in 1999, apparently because he thought the man was trying to buy the club for himself.
So he kills a guy because he thinks that he's buying the club underneath his like from his dad.
Yeah,
Underneath
something
him.
like that.
Okay.
From what I've read, Jack had a substance abuse issue as well. Mm-hmm. And he ran pretty hot.
Okay.
Now, of course, on account of Jack's bad temper and not the poor victim of the shooting, the club was sold for reals, ironically. By the way, Jack Perry pled guilty and served 14 years. Now, after that unfortunate homicide, the club was sold to Luis Hidalgo, who was known to employees as Mr. H. Mr. H also employed his son to work for him at the Palomino Club. And just like Jack and Paul, it didn't work out well either. Let me tell you about it. First of all, they tried implementing male strippers. I think you're the only one that likes that.
Maybe.
I like the name. They called them the Palomino Stallions.
Okay.
The
Pal Styles.
I just can't imagine that male strippers are great for business. I mean, there are men out there that come home from the club having like maxed out their damn black card. I don't know any woman that is going to spend, not even you, who's going to spend perfectly good shopping money on a Palomino Stallion.
Listen, well, and was it together? I mean, the thing with the Olympic Gardens is the guys are in like a totally different area. So, I don't think men that are going to look at women necessarily want to see another man's junk.
Well, yeah.
No, so was it separate?
I don't know for sure, but okay. I'm sure it's a big. The club is like 30,000 square feet, so it's a pretty big place.
Big. Okay.
Well, that was not the only hiccup the Palomino suffered under the new ownership. The Olympic Gardens Club sued the Palomino Club because they didn't like their practice of conspiring with the cab drivers in town to divert customers. But, giving the cabbies a kickback had been the Palomino's jam since, the get back in the 1970s. The lawsuit was eventually dropped, but there must have been some sort of agreement for them to quit bribing the cabbies. But the current owners, Mr. H and his son, little Luis, had heard that word on the street was that a man named Timothy, TJ Hadlin, had been going around to the various clubs informing them that the Palomino had not quit giving cabbies kickbacks. TJ Hadlin had worked at the Palomino as a doorman until recently. He had been a little bit fired for unknown reasons, but it's not hard to imagine Timothy might have felt compelled to talk some smack on his former employer. Mm-hmm. People do that when they lose their jobs from time to time. But on the other hand, I don't think we really know that TJ had made it his mission to shit talk the Palomino Club until they faced consequences or not. That was just the word on the street that the Hidalgos had heard. What we do know for sure is that TJ was a 44-year-old father of 4 that was beloved by his children. Tim was the outdoorsy type, like real outdoorsy, and loved doing the camping thing. On May 19th, 2005, that's exactly what TJ was up to. A little camping trip at nearby Lake Mead. Now, despite being fired 2 weeks prior from the Palomino, he still had friends that were currently employed there, and one of them was D'Angelo Carroll. So, of course, when D'Angelo called up TJ and said, "Hey, buddy, where you at? I've got some weed with your name on it." TJ said, "Heck yeah, I'm out here with my girlfriend at Lake Mead, so let's meet up." Lake Mead is real close to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So TJ agreed to drive a little ways to meet D'Angelo. What, of course, TJ didn't know was that D'Angelo was not his friend at all, and he was up to no good. We know that because Mr. H, the big boss man at the Palomino, had given the order to his son, little Luis, to have him pay D'Angelo to kill TJ in order to shut him up about all the blabbing he was supposedly doing around town about the whole cabbies thing. So when D'Angelo informed his boss that TJ was camping at the moment with his girlfriend, he ordered him to shoot him if he showed up to the meeting alone. On the way to meet TJ, D'Angelo picked up 2 other Palomino employees who believed they were just getting picked up to do what they had always done in the past, which was to circulate flyers for the Palomino Club.
Yeah.
But there was another man D'Angelo picked up, and this man knew flyer circulating was not the main event on the agenda. His name was Kenneth Counts, and he went by the name Casey. Casey was a gang member from California who had a long list of charges involving firearms on his rap sheet. And on the night in question, he was again armed to fire. When the van full of the 4 men pulled up to the remote meeting location and they could see that TJ had showed up alone, Casey slipped out the back of the van and snuck around to TJ and fatally shot him. The men in the van fled, but managed to leave behind a bunch of Palomino Club flyers at the scene. In the following hours, a 911 call came in to Vegas PD when TJ's body was discovered. When they arrived on scene, they knew this was a homicide situation, given that he was dead from a bullet wound and there was no gun to be found. TJ's car was still running and the lights were on. Detectives found his cell phone on the floorboard and looked at the last call he had received. Back at the station, they were able to piece together that TJ was a former employee of the Palomino Club, and that the last call he received was from D'Angelo Carroll, who was a current employee. And along with the flyers, I mean, they are thinking the motivation for the murder might have something to do with Vegas's oldest stripping establishment.
Yeah.
So, next stop, the Palomino. They spoke with Mr. H himself, and he gave them some dismissive, sus vibes. When they asked him about his employee, D'Angelo Carroll, he informed them that he was scheduled to come into work that evening. So the detectives decided to have 2 officers wait for D'Angelo inside the club while 2 watched from the parking lot. Their thinking was that if they left and Mr. H got a chance to talk to D'Angelo before they did, then they might conspire together to come up with an alibi, or D'Angelo might, flee. So they staked him out.
I like a stakeout.
Yeah, I'm sure the officers in the club probably didn't mind the entertainment while they watched and waited, right?
You think that yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I think that's a question we need to ask, like, our friends over there at the Shield.
I know. We need to get them on this podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. We'll work on that.
Okay. So just as Mr. H told the detectives earlier, D'Angelo reported for work that evening on time. As the detectives waiting in the parking lot watched him roll into the building, they took note that D'Angelo had got himself a haircut. He previously had longer hair, and when they saw him with a fresh, short hair did, the detectives' spidey senses went up, and they said to each other, you know what people like to be doing right after they commit a crime? Change their appearance.
Get a haircut, dye their hair. Maybe take a vacation.
Yeah, that too, for sure. They were looking at him sideways even before they got to questioning him, which he agreed to do down at the station. They started in with the, why don't you tell us what you were up to last night? He said he was home, and they said, so you were just home? Just home making some phone calls, right? And he said, yeah, just home making phone calls. And then they said, like, don't you mean you were out by Lake Mead? And at first he says, no, I was just home. But then they tell him his cell phone pinged off a Lake Mead area cell phone tower.
Mm-hmm.
in the evening, which I'm not 100% sure that they actually confirmed that. Like, I think they were just bluffing. You know how they do. But in any case, it worked.
So then he said yes.
Yeah, because D'Angelo, he started to say, oh, well, I forgot I took a drive. And then, they cracked him, and D'Angelo went on to spill his guts.
Yeah.
He told them TJ was killed because Mr. H had put a hit out on him. He told them he was not the shooter, but he knew who it was because he was in the van, and so were 2 other guys. When he told them that the whole reason there was a hit out on TJ was because of the cabbies thing, the detective's spidey sense told them this time D'Angelo was telling the truth because it was just too bananas of a story to be made up. So they let him go free because he promised them that he would get the other 2 witnesses to come in and corroborate his story. And those witnesses, the other 2 men that were in the van, did the very next day. So now there was the business of bringing in KC, the shooter. And this was where things got a bit tricky. Given that, remember, I told you how KC had a load of firearm charges on his record, they felt the need to have the SWAT team assist them. They got a warrant for KC's residence and had SWAT ready to go when the lead detective got a call from D'Angelo, who had stayed in regular communication with him. You see, none of the players involved knew that D'Angelo had spilled the tea along with the other 2 guys in the van, right? Mr. H, his son, they're all in the dark. So the police had D'Angelo and the other 2 men, keep up business as usual. So Mr. H and his son, little Louise, and KC wouldn't get suspicious. I mean, because that's who they wanted the most, the shooter and the ones who ordered the conspired hit.
Right.
So they had to really trust these guys not to, crack under pressure. So they're in constant communication. So back to the call from D'Angelo to the head detective that happened right before they intended to execute the warrant with SWAT for KC. D'Angelo said, don't do it because Casey's not home. He's across the street. So they had to call the judge and get another warrant for the across the street house. Yeah. They were able to do so. And when they did, KC did not come out willingly. He had dug himself into the attic and hid behind some ventilation.
What, like he thinks that they're not going to find him?
Yeah, that's what he was hoping for. Yeah, that's the only reason I would hide behind ventilation. That shit is toxic.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
Like, breathing in all those microfibers. Did he die of cancer? What?
Yeah. Screw that. Thankfully, he was apprehended safely. When KC was brought down to the station, he did not feel like conversating one bit. He asked for a lawyer immediately.
Well, Casey, that's like probably what you had been told to do and what I would advise.
He sounds like he was not brand new to criminal activity and knew that, less is more when it comes to being chatty. Mm-hmm. So still, little Louise and Mr. H did not know that KC was in custody, but they were concerned that police might be sniffing around a little. And so little Louise called D'Angelo and said he wanted to meet with him. So D'Angelo called up his detective buddy and says, like, oh shit, they want to meet with me. What do I do? For whatever reason, they sent D'Angelo to the meeting, but they didn't wire him up so they could hear what was going on live. Instead, they opted to plant a recording device on him so they could listen later, and they waited outside while he went in for his chat. The chat went down at a body shop that was another business that Mr. H owned. Mr. H was not at the meeting, but in addition to his son, someone else was there that was very close to him. His mistress.
Oh.
Annabelle Espindola had been banging Mr. H for the last 14 years.
Oh my God. 14 years?
Yeah.
Well, that's a long time to be a mistress.
Yeah.
Was she married too? Or like she just
No.
didn't care about the lifestyle of.
She had met him at the age of 18. And she wasn't just his side boo. She was also a manager at the Palomino Club and his body shop.
Wow. Okay. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, we've known people that have had a long time affairs also. So, yeah.
Yeah. So while detectives are watching the body shop from afar, D'Angelo goes in for his chat with Annabelle and little Louise and emerges 30 minutes later. When they listened to the tape, they found that they hit the jackpot with incriminating evidence. On the tape, you can hear them initially ask him repeatedly if he's wearing a wire. And he plays it off pretty well. He's like, fuck no, I'm just here because you need to give me more money to give the other two guys to keep them quiet because they might be the ones that feel like talking and flipping on you.
Mm-hmm.
On the tape, their response was like, well, then just have Casey shoot them too.
Oh, God.
So damn ruthless.
Oh, my God.
They are also heard
Oh my
brainstorming, putting some rat poison in their Tanqueray.
Oh, my gosh. This is like mob shit.
Just a reminder, we're talking about cabs. like it's going down over. It's so senseless. Yeah. So, anyways, they're talking about the rat poison in the Tanqueray, and Annabelle says, like, nah, death by rat poison takes too long.
Oh my gosh.
That's probably the wisest thing she said on that tape, because I think
how
that's true.
How does she know?
Maybe she watches a lot of Dateline.
Back then?
Yeah.
Okay.
On nights
maybe.
when Mr. H is with his wife.
True.
Dateline has been on forever.
I know. Okay.
This was in 2005. So the authorities felt that they had enough to bring Annabelle and little Louise down to the station, and both of them weren't feeling chatty either and asked immediately for lawyers.
What Annabelle needs to do is ask for an attorney and then turn on everybody.
Yeah, that is what she needed to do. But remember, I mean, banging him since she was 18. That will fuck you up. That will keep you a little too loyal.
Yeah.
Okay. A little too loyal for your own good. But we'll get back to that.
He's not loyal to her.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to get into it.
Okay.
Okay. So at this point, Annabelle and little Louise were charged with conspiracy to commit murder. And so was Casey, in addition to murder with a deadly weapon. Now, the thing was they really wanted, of course, Mr. H, but they just didn't have enough to tie him to the conspiracy. So he remained free. Casey was tried first in 2008, and the prosecutors wanted the death penalty for the crime he had committed. So, I mean, it's like an extra serial situation.
Yeah.
Right? At his trial, the jury heard the statements given to the police by D'Angelo and the other two men in the van that placed Casey as the shooter. They were also shown evidence that was found when they searched Casey's home. They found a bunch of like VIP Palomino cards.
Mm-hmm.
The cards had both D'Angelo's and Casey's fingerprints on them. So that like ties the two together. And so that wasn't looking so good for Casey. But his defense was that he was at home all night and he had multiple family members testify that he never left the house. They also argued that D'Angelo had given conflicting stories to the police about his account of the night's events, which is true. In his interrogation, he was, a little scattered. Mm-hmm. The defense argued that Casey was never in the van at all. So the verdict came back and the jury found Casey guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, but he was acquitted of murder in the first degree. So the death penalty was no longer a possibility. He was sentenced to 8 to 20 years.
That's not that long.
It's not that long.
No.
He was paroled in 2020 after serving around 15 years. He is 49 as of today.
Oh my gosh. He's not even that old.
I know.
Where is he now?
Well,
is he a minister of the church?
he's not a minister of the church.
Come on.
Yeah. But he's around. I'm sure he is. He has a family. He has children and everything. He is. Okay. I'm sure let's all just hope he's reformed. Okay. Now it was time to try Annabelle. And this time they had the very incriminating tapes. Like, they didn't have that little single lock-in, nugget when they tried him. He wasn't on the tapes, right?
Right.
Saying that he did it. But now they have these incriminating tapes saying, can Casey kill the other men too? The state of Nevada's position was that Annabelle had acted as the broker between Mr. H and D'Angelo in the conspiracy to murder TJ Hadland, and they wanted her to face the death penalty for that role. Doesn't that seem extra?
I would be like, I'll tell you everything.
Not that I'm condoning that, but holy shit.
Yes, and the other guy gets 8 years in prison, and
they felt real bad about that.
Go down to Chinatown, and she needs to talk and say, "Let me make a deal."
Yeah,
should have said it before.
I know. Okay, so 3 years after she had been arrested and remained in custody, the state offered to take the death penalty off the table for her testimony against her boo, Mr. H. She was not easily persuaded because, she'd been banging him since she was 18.
Not when she's in prison.
But eventually...
The D's not that good. I'm sorry, honey.
I know. With the advice of her attorney and, 3 years in the clink, it had, taken a toll, and she came to the realization finally that her love had bounds, and those bounds included not taking the death penalty, right?
Good.
So she wasn't riding for her boo that hard, so she spilled it. Her story was that D'Angelo had approached her, Mr. H, and little Louise and told them that TJ was out on the streets talking shit, and it was probably costing them money. And that's when they concocted the savage plan to execute TJ. It really begs the question, was TJ really talking shit? Not that it matters either way. He certainly didn't deserve to die. But what does kind of matter is D'Angelo had played it like he had been just taking orders from Mr. H.
Right.
The whole time, right? So Annabelle also stated that when the men returned that night after committing the murder, Mr. H ordered her to pay D'Angelo $5,000 from the safe for the hit. So, that did incriminate him, and that statement was exactly what they needed to take Mr. H down. How giving that statement ended up shaken out for her was a reduced charge of voluntary manslaughter with a deadly weapon, which she pled guilty to and was sentenced to 4 to 12 years.
Okay, that's smart on her part.
Mr. H was arrested after Annabelle's statement, and both him and little Louise were tried together. They shared a lawyer, a man by the name of Dominic Gentile. He gave good defense, Tab. He objected to everything. He was one of those real entertaining type lawyers.
I like those.
Like a Garagos or Johnny Cochran or something. Yeah. He tore apart all the incriminating statements, but in the end, it wasn't enough. And in February 2009, both men were found guilty and sentenced 20 to life. So, last but not least is how did this shake out for DeAngelo? In the 4 years since the murder had happened, he had not been able to come to an agreeable plea deal with the state despite all his cooperation. So he faced a jury of his peers in 2010 and
Life.
No surprise, prosecutors asked for the death penalty.
Oh, okay.
But ultimately, what ended up happening was him being sentenced to 43 to life with the possibility of parole in 2025. So right around the corner.
Coming up.
Annabelle was released after serving 4 years.
Okay.
She is 52 years old now and has assimilated back in society. Mr. H died at the age of 68 in prison in 2019. His son, little Luis, has not been paroled yet. I don't know if he ever will be, but for now, at the age of 42, he is still listed as an inmate at the Lovelock Correctional Facility in Nevada.
Okay.
As for DeAngelo, he is now 43 and is still serving his sentence at another Nevada prison, the High Desert State Prison.
Okay.
Okay, now I know what you're thinking. What happened to the oldest damn strip club in Las Vegas, the Palomino Club?
Still there, you told me.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is pretty interesting, okay? When Mr. H went to prison, he sold the club to his attorney, Dominic Gentile, as payment for his legal fees.
Yeah. So he still owns it?
Okay, guess what? No, guess what he did with it?
Sold it.
He gave it to his damn son. Adam. This is the third.
That's so
father,
funny.
son.
And it's still going.
Okay, let's hope third time father son ownership changing hands is the charm and not another senseless fatality.
I know, my gosh.
Okay, so far so good, it appears. The world, with a subscription to Playboy TV back in the day, or 2009, got a peek into the life of the daily drama of the Gentile family with their newfound ownership of the club, because they were featured in a reality show centered around them that aired for one season. It was called The King of Clubs.
Okay. Did you watch it?
I couldn't find anywhere to watch a whole episode. It was only on the Playboy channel.
Oh, okay.
But there is like a 10-minute reel of the show on YouTube. So, obviously I watched that.
Yeah.
I loved seeing, like the costumes that the women wear. I mean, that part of it like looks like so glamorous, right? They had like a carnival, night, like they're doing all this like fun stuff, right? But aside from all the costumes, the show looked pretty cheesy, even by my low standards. Which is maybe why it only ran for one season.
Did you start watching The Traitors yet? No. On Peacock?
No.
You have to watch it so we could talk about it.
Okay, I will watch it. Okay. I am impressed that the Palomino Club has still maintained its license to be fully nude and serve alcohol after all these years.
Yeah.
I guess they have been able to do so because of some grandfathered,
that's what I was thinking.
Nevada clause.
Long time.
Oh, yeah. Vegas banned the fully nude alcohol combination in 1999. So, yeah. So they're the only one. Adam Gentile is still the owner, and getting people there appears to still be the name of the game, right? So smartly, when you go on the club's website, you can fill out a form and get yourself some free transportation.
That is smart.
That is smart. They have like real like fancy looking like pink and black vans that will come and pick you up. They'll pick your ass up. That is very smart. Okay. So the business appears to be doing well still. As for Adam, based on a little web sleuthing, he is living large. And I would just like to end with my condolences to TJ Hadlin's family. His murder was so beyond senseless, and they did not get the justice they deserved. And that's not fair. It's just very sad.
Very sad. So that is unfortunate. So yeah, that is a crazy case. If you guys want to hear more cases and more about us on Thursdays, we are doing extra episodes. If you listen on Apple, it's the Clink Clink Club. And if you listen on Spotify, you can look for Housewives of True Crime bonus content. And if you don't listen on either of those platforms, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/Housewives of True Crime. And there you can also get different levels. You can get swag, you can get stickers, and those are going out soon. So get on it while I'm on it. I'm very into the business side of things these days.
I love it.
Also, we have a new sponsor. This is not an ad, but I did use it today. That Beverly Hills MD.
I used it today too.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So it's this wrinkle filler.
Yeah.
That
I used it because I'm in between. I'm overdue for the tox.
Yes. Okay. So if you don't do Botox, or you do Botox, but you're in between, or you have these like really deep set wrinkles that, sometimes Botox just won't get those. This is like this little filler that you put on and it kind of fills in the wrinkle.
Yeah.
And then you put the makeup on top. Yeah. You let it dry and then you put the makeup on top. It's like kind of genius.
Yeah.
I was really into it. The other one is the hero bread. I'm still really into that.
Yeah, me too.
I'm getting the croissants next. I'm like,
oh yeah, I got that email.
Oh my
croissants
gosh.
Are coming. Yeah.
Yes. I was like, sign me up for a damn croissant with one carb. And our product, which will help us personally, is 5 Crimes. And that is the best like creams and lotions and tanning drops. If you, like I just said on our Patreon this last week, if you don't want to tan your face in the summer or your body, like the tanning drops are amazing. It gives you that summer glow without actually getting any sun damage. So get those at 5crimes.com, FIVE crimes.com. And I think that's it, Gretchy Poo.
Okay. Clink, clink.
Clink, clink.